We're going to make the bumper for this, and we're also going to make some minor changes here. We're going to add in some vertices to make this better curve in this area, and just adjust the topology here so it looks a little bit different. First, we're just going to press Tab to go into edit mode. We're going to do Control 7 to bring us the bottom view, and we want to take this vertex and make a straight line so that we can have a nice curve all the way through in this area. So we're going to do K for the knife cut tool. We're going to left click here, do C to make a straight line, and then just left click on this line. So make sure it's yellow, then left click and press enter. So now we have a nice straight line there. And we want to do the same here. We're actually going to do that in front view. So we're going to do 1 for front view, and then we're going to do K for the knife cut tool, left click here. We're going to do Z to make sure it's going to do cut through. You can see down at the bottom you have Z as cut through and it's on. So cut through should be on. Then you're going to press C to make a straight line again, and then just go up above this line anywhere and then left click and press enter. So that's going to cut through the mesh and make sure we get a vertex back here as well as a vertex right here. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to do Z for wireframe, B to box select, get all the vertices that are here, and what we want to do is make a nicer curve. So we're just going to bring this out a little bit and try to make this a smoother curve throughout this entire thing. So just bring it forward slightly, take a look at it and see if you like the shape of it, and adjust it a little bit if you think it should be forward or back some. Once you're happy with the shape of it, we're going to start making the actual bumper, and to do that we're going to start out by selecting this vertex, holding Control and selecting this. So we'll start with these 3 vertices, and we'll just do Shift D to duplicate, right click to cancel, bring it up slightly so it's just a little bit above that, and this will be our base starting point, because the shape of the bumper in this area is basically the same as the shape of the front of the car. So we're just making it exactly the same as the front of the car. But the shape over here does change a little bit, so that's why we stopped here, and we're just going to make this by hand. So we're going to select this vertex, we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, going to bring it over and then back some, maybe like this. Then E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring it over and back again. I'm going to do one more, so we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, just bring it over a little bit here. And I might even want to adjust some of these points a little bit. So that's probably going to be alright there. And we can Alt right click on this to get the entire thing. And we actually just want to start out with the ones in the front to begin with. So I'm going to deselect the 2 on the end, so C for circle select, middle mouse deselect. And then we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, and bring these out. You can actually do 3 for side view if you want, and kind of use this reference. So if you bring it out to about here, so we want the front vertex to be mostly lined up with this. And then do E to extrude, bring it down to about here. You can do Z for wireframe if you want, E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring it down slightly. E to extrude, right click to cancel, bring it down and then back. And then E to extrude, right click to cancel, and finally just bring it back towards the car. So we're just going to bring this back until it's basically touching the car. Then we want to continue this to curve around to the outside. So in order to do that, first actually we're going to try to curve some of this too. So I'm going to select this vertex, do Shift S, cursor to selected, to put the cursor right on that vertex. And we're going to switch this to the 3D cursor, so the pivot point's now the 3D cursor. And we're going to Alt right click here, then do R and then Z, and now we can rotate this so that this point starts to rotate, or the outer points will start to rotate around the shape of the car just like we want them to. So now we can actually adjust that slightly, and then I'm just going to duplicate this by doing Shift D, holding Control and snapping it to this vertex. And then we're going to do Alt and Shift, right click to select this edge loop, and do Shift and Q, and that will do bridge edge loops. And you can do A twice, W, and remove doubles, and that will remove that extra vertex right there. And again, we're going to select this vertex, do Shift S, cursor to selected, and you can do Alt right click, R and then Z, and that will rotate right here, and you can just get the shape that you want. Shift D to duplicate, hold Control, snap it there. Alt and Shift right click, Shift and Q to bridge edge loops, A twice, and then W, remove doubles to get rid of this extra vertex here. And again, we're just going to make sure that our cursor is right here, Shift S, cursor to selected, Alt right click, RZ, and just rotate. And now we're getting basically the shape of a bumper. So in object mode, you can see this is actually flat shaded. So if you go to object mode and turn on smooth shading, now you can start to get a look at what our bumper is going to look like. The next thing we want to do is take a look at our reference image. And here we can tell like this part's pretty thick, and then it starts to taper off and get thinner as you get to the end. So we want to make sure that this end part is going to be skinnier, and this is kind of where it's going to start getting skinnier. So what we want to do is just bring all these in a bit, and I'm going to just switch this back to median point for right now, and I'm just going to start bringing these in on the x-axis. We're just going to bring these in and bring this one in as well. And we can even do 3 for side view and Z for wireframe, and you can see it kind of curves down too. So if you just want to start adjusting things, you can just grab vertices and start adjusting them like this. There's 2 right there, so if you select one, B to box select, that'll get both. And you can use G to move it. Same here, select both by doing B to box select and just move it with G. So these here, we might want to actually bring some of these down too, just to get that angle started at this point. Maybe bring this one up slightly so it's not such a extreme angle. And the other thing you might want to do is just adjust these on the y-axis and maybe the x-axis too. We want this to be a bit closer to the car, I believe, so we're just going to bring this in a little bit closer, and we'll do the same for most of these vertices. This one I'm actually going to bring nice and close, and then this one we'll bring pretty close, and we'll bring all these a bit closer as well. You'll also want to adjust these, so these in this area, you can do these 3 if you want to start out and just bring them closer, maybe over on the y-axis a little bit, and we'll just get this to be closer to the curvature that we want. And the reason the shading's changing a lot is because we still have this edge split, so anytime it's 60 degrees or greater of an angle, it's going to give us that little edge split line. So we're not going to worry about that right now. We may end up, I'm probably going to end up disabling this later, so just don't really worry about that. So basically what I did is I brought these in and waited until they went through the mesh, then I brought them back out of the mesh, and I just did that for each one. And then I went back to side view and selected them each one at a time and just used G to position them closer to the shape of how this is supposed to be. And then if you want to, you can go back through and just make sure that they're still in the correct position as far as the X value goes. Just get them close to the mesh and then bring them a little bit further out so they're not quite touching the car itself. So this is kind of, it tapers off a little bit too much. In order to fix that, we're just going to do Control R, left click, do E. So the red dot should be on that side. If it's not, you can press F to switch the side. So it should be over here. And we're just going to bring it to about here. And then select these 3 vertices. So you can select this one, hold Control, select that one. And we're just going to bring it out so that this part has still some thickness to it. And then eventually it just tapers off to nothing. So we get more of the shape of actually how it's supposed to be. And you can use Q to slide these back a little just so it tapers off a bit nicer so you get a nice shape to it. And I actually think maybe I want to adjust the position of this one some. So I'm going to bring it back over to here a little bit. And I think that'll be alright. And I think actually I'm going to take some of these, probably this one too, and just move it over a bit on the y-axis. So I'm going to bring these over, a bit more over in this direction, just so this is more in between both these edge loops now. So I think that looks alright, and maybe even take these and just bring them back slightly to keep that curvature in this area. It's a bit more of a smoother transition. And these are definitely sticking out too far on the x-axis, so we're going to just pull them in. And I'm actually just going to disable this right now because I know I'm going to disable it later. So just click on this eye and that'll turn that off, so you won't have that problem there. I'm actually going to move these a bit as well. The next thing we're going to make is little pieces that go on the front here. So we're just going to do one for front view, tab into edit mode, Z for wireframe, and it's this piece right here. So if we look at the picture, this is kind of what we're making. So we're going to start with a circle. So I'm actually going to do Alt right click to get this circle for the headlight, and we're going to do one for front view, Z for wireframe, Shift D to duplicate this and just bring it over here, S to scale it down a bit, G to move it into position, S and then X to make it skinnier on the X-axis, and you want it to be about like this. So you can do S and Z to make it taller, S and X to make it wider, and just position it correctly. Once you're happy, you're just going to press F to make a face. We're going to do I to inset and do a little bit of an inset, and we're actually just going to bring this out a bit. So you're going to take this, bring it out slightly. I'm going to do Control L, and I'm actually going to bring all this in front of this. And you can do 3 for side view if you want and just kind of line this up to where it should be. And I'm going to do 1 for front view again, switch back to face select, get this face. So the part that we just made was, we started with this outer loop and then we made an extrusion, or we did the inset and pulled it out, which is this bottom of the black piece right here. That's that part. So now we need to extrude it out a little bit to make this part. And then we need to make sure the center sticks out some. So we're going to take this, we're going to extrude it out, and then bring the center out some. So we're going to take this piece that we already have, we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel, and we're going to bring it out a little bit. And we need to bring the center out, so we need a vertex in the center. To do that, we're just going to switch to vertex select, and select the top and bottom vertex, do J to join, select the left and right vertex, J to join, and now we have one in the center. So we're going to select that center vertex and just pull it out, and that'll give us the shape of that piece. So we're going to do Alt right click and we're going to get this. Now we have to bring it back and actually up a bit, back and then down a bit over here. And one thing you'll notice in this is it actually goes a bit to the left or to the right if you're looking from here. So it goes back and then left a bit, or back and right a bit if you're looking on this side. So it needs to come towards the center of the car basically, and it's actually goes up a bit more than it goes down. Like it goes down a little bit, but it goes up at a steeper angle. So we're going to do E to extrude, right click to cancel and bring this back. We actually can do 3 for side view if you want, and Z for wireframe, and kind of see how far back you have to bring this. Then we're just going to do S and Z and scale this out a little bit on the Z axis, then bring it up some so that the top angle is a bit steeper than the bottom angle. And we also want to do S and then X and bring it out a little bit on the X axis, but also bring it to the left here in this case so that it's sticking out more on the left than it is on the right. And you can use front view a little bit if you want to, just to try to adjust that some. One other thing I would mention is the angle of this. So you can see the top stops here and then it angles back and comes up almost to the back of this. So you want this to go almost to the back of that. But this top part ends here and then it just angles down until it meets up with the car, or it meets up with the bumper. So what we need is this top part to basically be there, and we need the rest of this, or if we select these two vertices, so you want these two right here on the left and right, and we're going to bring these back some, and we want to bring them up some until they almost get to the back. You can see that the angle's almost at the back, but not quite touching the back of that. And then you're going to take these two and we're going to bring it until this is pretty much a straight line between this vertex and that vertex. So we have the angle similar to what you can see, in this car picture right here. We're also going to go to object mode and then just turn on smooth shading, and that should make it look a little bit better. Lastly, we're going to do 3 for side view, Z for wireframe. I'm actually going to take these two vertices, so select one, B to box select the other, bring this one back some so that we change the angle on the bottom too, and I'm just going to do Control L, select all of it, and do S and then Z to scale this down on the Z axis until this part lines up a bit better. And if you want to, you can even select this one and bring it down slightly. and just adjust the angle of this to meet up. It's not going to match the reference because I think this actually does go a bit further back than what the reference shows, but you just make any adjustments that you feel are appropriate, and this maybe is closer to the way that they have it in the reference. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be more straight like this or if it's angled back, but pretty much just go with whatever you think looks good. And the last thing we can kind of add to make this stick out a little bit better is the Bevel Modifier. So if you go to Add Modifier, choose Bevel, and we're just going to go down here, so scroll down, and we're going to change this to weight. So limit method should be on weight, and segments, you can leave it at 1 for now. And we'll just tab into edit mode. We want a bevel around this edge loop, so we're going to alt right click here. And we're actually going to switch to edge select so we can see that the bevel is working. And we're going to do Control E, that's going to bring up our edges menu. And we're going to choose edge bevel weight, so just left click on this. And then just drag it until on the bottom left it says +1. And then just left click. If you want to make sure you have the bevel weight, you can press N, and that will bring up this panel, and just go to the top. And you can see mean bevel weight of 1. You can change it here too by left clicking and dragging. Or you can do Control E, edge bevel weight, and adjust it like this. That's the easier way to do it. So I'm going to close this panel. That's how you can find it if you want to. Just press N to open up that panel with your mouse here, or left click on this. And you can also close it by left clicking and dragging like that, or use the N key. So now we have a nice little bevel there, and we also want a bevel going around this part, so we're going to alt right click, alt and shift right click, and continue alt and shift right clicking, and then we're going to do Control E, edge bevel weight, go until it says 1, then left click, and now we're getting a little bit nicer of a shape on there. The last thing I wanted to mention was the fact that this actually kind of angles down a little bit. These little holes in the bottom that we made, they kind of angle down a bit, and I did notice on this model, looks like there's another hole in the center. We can deal with that later if we want to. But this kind of angles down slightly, so we want that to angle down slightly. And we want less space, or less of a gap between the bottom of the bumper and this part. Like there's not much space between it from this front view. But on ours, there's actually quite a bit. If we go to front view by pressing 1, you can see how much space we have. So we want to correct those two problems. So we're going to go into edit mode by pressing tab. Go to vertex select, and for now we can actually just alt right click and on this inner edge loop, and then do delete and choose vertices. So we're only dealing with one set of vertices instead of 2, and we'll just do 1 for front view. Select this vertex, and we'll just G twice and slide it up until we have less space between the bumper. And we can do the same here. Select this vertex, do G twice, bring it up, and kind of keep a downward angle. And then once you're finished with that, you're just going to go back to edit mode by pressing tab and then alt right click here. E to extrude, right click to cancel, and just bring this back on the Y axis slightly again so you have that depth right here. Another thing you could adjust if you wanted to is if you take a look at this, these vertices are further out than this edge right here. So you could select these 2 vertices and then just bring it back until they meet up more nicely with that edge. And you can do the same up here, select these 2 and just bring it back. And you can even bring it back and then bring it forward, hold control, snap it there just to make sure the front vertex lines up with that vertex. I'm just going to adjust mine a little bit more. And then once you're happy with it, just go to File and Save. Thank you to our awesome Patreon supporters. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter yourself, head on over to patreon.com/StephenBrooks. Thank you for your support.